right, we're gonna get started with our embroidery. So you're going to need your embroidery hoop that I've already put your fabric in. You should have some thread and then your needle. And first thing I'm going to show you is how to thread your needle. So go ahead and get some thread off of your spool. I like to get about an arm's length. So I'll hold it in one hand, measure it up my arm to my shoulder, and then cut it. And depending on the size of the needle that I gave you, your eye of your needle might be bigger or smaller, depending. So let's see, there we go. This is where we're going to put our thread through. So I have a pretty big eye of the needle, so I could probably fit this whole piece of thread through. Yours might be smaller. If it's smaller, then what you can do is separate the thread into smaller increments so they're not as thick. I'm going to just put this whole thing in so that you can see it more clearly. So finding the eye of the needle, hold the edge of your thread at close to the end and kind of wiggle it through and pull it out the end. Sometimes you have to twist it between your fingers to keep all those strands together. There we go. So I'm going to pull this until it meets the other end of my thread. And then you can tie a knot at the bottom if you'd like. So you can just tie it like you tie your shoes. Double knot. All right, so the next step is we are going to get our fabric ready for us to stitch. So the project we're doing today is we're going to embroider a letter. So on your fabric, using a pencil or a pen if you'd like, I like a pencil because it's lighter, you can draw whatever letter you would like to create. We're going to do it in a block letter. So I'm going to do the letter B. I'm drawing a straight line down and then making the shape of my B. And then you're going to repeat your shape to create the inside. So for this, I'm going to draw a little window here and down here. If you have all straight edges, you can just draw one big shape or letter and then inside draw a smaller letter and connect them at the straight ends. You can also search block letters in a Google search and it'll give you different images to try to use for your inspiration. So to begin stitching, we're going to take our needle. You always start in the back of your fabric. So the way you can tell it's the back for this is it's where the fabric kind of pushes away. That's the back. So I'm going to take my needle. I always start at a corner. And we're going to basically outline our letter. So I came up here at the bottom. I'm going to go all the way up this long line and go down here at the top. Pull it tight. Come back up close to where I went down, not in the exact same spot, or else it'll undo your stitch. And now I'm doing a rounded edge, so I'm going to do smaller stitches so that I can get that curve with my thread. And continue this process until you've outlined your whole letter. All right, now that was enough for me to do an outline. I'm gonna need more thread, so I'm going to cut my thread off up here near my needle, as close to it as I can get. And then I'm going to take this thread and either you can slip it under a stitch you've already done so it hooks onto that stitch, or you can just tie a knot the way you did to start your needle. So I'm just going to do a double knot. And then cut off the extra. And the next step is going to be to fill in our letter. If this was difficult and you just want to keep it outlined like this, or you think it looks nice, then you're finished. If you'd like to fill in your letter with your color, that's what we're going to be doing next. Okay, now we are going to fill in our letter if you would like. So we did our outlining. I have put thread back on my needle and tied it at the end. And I'm going to start filling in this letter. So starting at the side, whichever side you choose, you're going to make a series of straight lines going across the width of your letter, making those lines stack on top of one another as they move their way up the letter, so that you are getting this filled in look. And you just continue this process until you either run out of thread or you filled up your whole letter. If you miss a space, you can just go back, fill it back in. Now with this one, I'm going to take this line all the way across since it can go right above the spot that I need to leave open. And it's going to make a nice long line to fill it in. Just continuing this process until your letter is completely filled with thread. You could switch the thread halfway through if you want to do different colors. It's up to you. All right, and here is my finished embroidery. You can see there are some areas where I used thicker thread and some where I used thinner thread, but I want you to notice is how the lines that go in the same direction, how they look nice and uniform. So that's something to shoot for when you're making your embroidered letter. You can also add extra things around the side if you want to decorate. And then the last step would be to trim off this extra fabric so you can keep it displayed on this hoop. Or you can unscrew this hoop and remove your fabric and use this for something else and put a new piece of fabric on and keep embroidering. I hope you guys enjoyed this lesson.